Hello everyone and welcome to DC Central, and in today's video we are going to be doing a lot more of a sad news report. This is a day I never wanted to come. This was a video that I was not looking forward to making, but I'm sure you guys all know the news. You saw my initial thoughts last night, but it is officially being confirmed by Stephen Amell and the CW that Arrow will be ending after its 8th season on a 10-episode run. So that's the news. So Arrow, obviously we knew Arrow was going to be getting a season 8. It was renewed about a month ago, along with all the other Arrowverse shows. And yeah, it's been confirmed that season 8 will be the final season, and season 8 will consist of 10 episodes rather than the 22, 23 episodes that we've been getting as of late. So that's the news. I just wanted to talk simply about Arrow. I wanted to talk about, you know, my love for Arrow, how much it means to me, how much it's inspired me, how much it's been a part of my life ever since I started watching the show, which was in between the break between season 4 and 5. Arrow is very, very special to me. I mean, you guys know this. If you watch these videos, you know, I'm extremely passionate about Arrow, and, you know, without Arrow, we wouldn't have the Arrowverse and things like that. And, you know, Arrow has done so much for the comic book genre, not only in terms of TV, but, you know, it was very heavily influenced by things such as Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, and then this led to, you know, without Arrow, I don't think we would have gotten a show like Daredevil, you know? I think that Arrow has done so much for the comic book world, especially on TV, and the genre in of itself. So just a quick little story time, you know, about Arrow, about how I personally discovered it. And I also just wanted to show off this as well. I mean, you might have been able to see this bad boy in the background of the videos sometimes. It's a bit high up, sometimes you can't see it, but yeah, I just wanted to show that off because sometimes you can't really see it in the videos. But yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful bit of artwork right there. But you know, how did I discover Arrow? How did I come across it? Well, I was actually looking at Brandon Routh's Instagram. Of course, Brandon Routh is who plays Ray Palmer on Arrow and also now Legends of Tomorrow. I was looking at his Instagram and I saw him tweeting or posting about Legends of Tomorrow back when season 1 was about to air. And I remember looking at that thinking, oh yeah, that seems really fun. Legends of Tomorrow looks like a really fun show. But I was very much aware of the Arrowverse, even though I wasn't watching it at this point. I was very much aware of what it was and the Arrowverse as a whole. And funnily enough, the Christmas before that, I had actually bought Arrow Season 1 on Blu-ray. I'd actually picked it up, and I just never watched it. And after seeing, you know, after kind of getting some interest in Legends and the Arrowverse in general, I decided that night I would go home and watch the pilot of Arrow Season 1. And I describe that night as the night I fell in love. I mean, that was like, you know, I watched that. Arrow was the first TV series I ever watched, like proper narrative-driven, story-driven TV series I'd ever seen. So when I watched Arrow for the first time, I was completely blown away by it. I was completely stunned by, you know, this level of, you know, detail and action and storytelling on TV. I wasn't adjusted to that. I'd never experienced anything like that before. I mean, I'd watched Daredevil, but I was, you know, and I'd watched Jessica Jones. I'd watched the Marvel series, but over on Netflix. But I was never really that invested in those at that point in time because, again, I wasn't really that familiar with TV. So, you know, when I kind of came across that after that first episode, like after watching the pilot, I was hooked, and that was when I watched, you know, Arrow Season 2, and then I moved on to Flash, and I just did everything and caught up. And I started watching Arrow live during Season 5. And that goes for all the shows as well. I started watching Flash live at Season 3, Supergirl at Season 2, and Legends at Season 2. And that was how I came across Arrow. Arrow, ever since then, has been a huge part of my life. It's been something that, you know, I would maybe label an obsession, but outside of that, I just think that, you know, the show is incredibly special. It's really spoke to me. It was incredibly inspirational to me. I think Arrow is something that, you know, means a lot in terms of, you know, how I live my life. I look a lot at Arrow. It's done a lot for me. It's really been this thing in my life that has always sort of, you know, kept me going, kept me excited. It's always been something that I've always looked forward to, and it's always been, you know, an anchor point in my life, you know. Arrow was always there. It was always just this thing that I could always love and appreciate and enjoy, no matter what time of day it was, no matter what day of the week it was. I could always sit down and just enjoy Arrow and just enjoy the life and the world of it. And that's why it's just incredibly inspirational to me. So much so that you know, I'm not really much of a sporty person myself. I don't do much sports. But one sport I actually do is archery. I do archery because of Arrow. Arrow inspired me to take up archery. Like, you know, I'd see Oliver in, you know, the early seasons practicing archery in the foundry and things like that, and I thought, you know, I'd like to give that a go. And I went to this place near where I live where they do archery, like you can just go and try it out, and I went there and I realized, hey, I'm actually quite good at this. Maybe one day, you know, as we get closer to the end of Arrow, maybe I'll post a video on this channel of me doing archery. But, you know, I realized that I'm actually quite good at this. Like, this is actually something I have quite a knack for. And I would consider that, you know, I kept doing archery, and I would consider myself to be pretty good at archery at this point. I mean, I am no Oliver Queen, but, you know, I know my way around a bow. And, you know, I think the fact that Arrow was able to inspire me to take up that sport, I think speaks volumes to how much the show meant to me and how much it meant to me. Also, one person who I really want to thank is Stephen Amell. Stephen Amell is somebody who I consider to be a role model. Stephen Amell is an incredible man. He's somebody I have a lot of respect for. He's somebody who has really been an inspiration in my life and somebody who I look up to. You know, his performance as Oliver Queen is something that I relate to a lot. And that's part of the reason why I love Oliver as a character so much, is I see a lot of myself in the character. I mean, obviously, I'm not a vigilante. I don't go around my local city dressed up as Robin Hood, going around with bow and arrow. But, you know, I do see a lot of myself in Oliver Queen. And with that, you know, that is why I think that Stephen Amell, what he brought to Oliver Queen was incredibly special. And Stephen Amell as an actor is just somebody who I think is incredibly admirable. Someone who I really look up to. You know, when I've been to conventions to see him, he's always been a complete gentleman. He's always been somebody who is incredibly dedicated to his fan base, somebody who is incredibly appreciative of his fans, and also just incredibly proud of what he does. He's incredibly proud of Arrow. He's proud of Oliver Queen, and he's proud of the comic book landscape that it's created. He's proud of this TV universe that he's created. He's spawned spin-off shows like The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow. You know, these shows that without Arrow would have never happened. And I think that, you know, Stephen Amell, he deserves the world. He deserves so much, and I really, you know, I'm going to follow his career very, very closely after Arrow ends. I can't wait to see what he does next. I wonder if he'll go into films, if he'll stick around on TV. Obviously, he has his Knocking Point business, so maybe he'll just try and explore that a bit more. Either way, I wish Stephen Amell all the best going forward, and hopefully, if he doesn't die by the end of the show, hopefully we can see him return to the Arrowverse one day, because Oliver Queen, you know, he's a hero, and Stephen Amell is an even bigger hero in my eyes. And speaking of those conventions, you know, Heroes and Villains, which if you're from the US, you'll know that. We also get a Heroes and Villains over here in London. I went there for the first time last year. I'm going again this year in May. Stay tuned for content about that. But Heroes and Villains 2018 was, you know, that day I consider to be the best day of my life. That day when I met Stephen Amell, along with all the other Arrow cast members, also cast members from The Flash and Supergirl and Legends of Tomorrow. I met loads of cast members that day, and I hope to meet many more this year. But that day I genuinely do consider to be the greatest day of my life. And without Arrow, that day would have never have happened. I would have never have, you know, if I'd never watched Arrow, I would have never have gone to that convention. I would have never have experienced the amounts of happiness that I experienced during those few hours. You know, there's the photo that I'm sure if you guys have seen. I put it up in videos before. If you follow me on Twitter, it's my profile picture of me and Stephen Amell. Everyone said to me that they've never seen me smile so large than in that photo. They've never seen me, you know, have that big of a smile before than when I was stood next to Stephen Amell. And I think that's completely telling that, you know, that's how I was able to feel. That's what really affected me. You know, I was really extremely, overwhelmingly happy that I was stood next to my hero, Stephen Amell. And again, I'm so excited for Heroes and Villains again this year. Hopefully we get to meet some new actors who weren't there last year. Stephen Amell has been confirmed to go. I've got my photo op booked with him again, so I'll have another new photo with Stephen in May. Now, another thing I have to talk about, which is very relevant to you guys, is this channel. Without Arrow, this channel would not exist. This channel specifically, not necessarily DC Central or DC TV Talk or any of my DC iterations of it. You know, this channel was originally a gaming channel way back in the day. Then I changed it to a movie TV channel, and then I changed it into a DC TV Arrowverse channel. But, you know, without Arrow, without the Arrowverse, without my love for these shows, I would have never have made that decision. I would have never have made this version of the channel. And, you know, not to toot my own horn in a way, but, you know, I wouldn't have experienced the growth on this channel that I have without the Arrowverse. You know, it was, and without Arrow, it was my niche. You know, it's my niche on YouTube. It's what I've been able to squeeze into, and you guys have found me, and you guys appreciate the content that I make. You guys love hearing my thoughts on the latest episodes. And, you know, again, without my love for these shows, without these shows even existing in the first place, without Arrow being the spearhead of this entire universe, that would have never have happened. And I think, you know, again, that just says so much that, you know, all this joy and all this success that I've enjoyed on YouTube and just creating this little community that we have would have never have happened if Arrow did not exist. And again, I'm incredibly thankful to you guys for sticking around with on this channel, and, you know, for always interacting with me, always listening to what I have to say. It's you know, it's nice to build this little community. And again, without Arrow, we wouldn't be here right now. I would not be on camera talking to you guys about this, making this video, without Arrow and without the Arrowverse. And obviously, questions are going to come up about Season 8 and, you know, inevitably the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. I'll probably do a whole video on that, just because this I wanted to be a bit more personal and not talk about the show itself. I'll do a whole video talking about the show itself. But in regards to Season 8, obviously, like we know, it's a 10-episode season, and I feel like, you know, potentially the last ever episode of Arrow could be the crossover. We could see Oliver die at the end of the crossover. Obviously, we've all been speculating about what was going to happen to him after Elseworlds and the potential deal he made with the Monitor to save Barry and Kara's life. So that, you know, again, there's a lot of questions that come out of that, and I will be talking about that on the podcast, and I'll also be talking about that in a separate video. I'll make that soon, probably this weekend at some point. But again, I just wanted to come on camera and just kind of talk about why Arrow meant so much to me, you know, give my little personal story about it. And, you know, by the time we get to the end of Season 8, around this time next year, slightly less, I'll be doing plenty of videos about Arrow, just, you know, just remembering everything about it and how amazing it's been. You know, say what you want about Season 3 and Season 4. I still love those seasons, and I will always love them, and I will love every single thing about this show, because, again, Arrow is my favourite show of all time. It's a huge part of my life, and I want to thank it for so much it's done. I want to thank the writers, I want to thank the showrunners, I want to thank the cast, the crew. I just want to thank everyone involved with Arrow and the CW for making this show happen and making such a positive influence on my life, because without Arrow, I would not be the man I am today, and that is an honest truth, and I want to say that. And without Stephen Amell, I would not, again, be the man that I am today. So I just want to say that thank you to everybody involved, thank you to all of you watching, and most importantly, thank you, Arrow. Thank you.